Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be with you again. So we have been looking together at arguments supporting the existence of life after death. And we saw that these arguments are all called arguments from authority. Authority in the sense of the authority of all those who have gone before us, who are now dead, and most of those living now. All of those people would have and do believe in life after death. It's a minority that don't believe in life after death. Added to this huge group of people is the authority of the wise from the past, from every religious tradition, such as Plato and Aristotle and Muhammad and Buddha and all these people, all believe in life after death. Leading up finally to the greatest figure of authority of all, which is Jesus himself, who we said last time, his whole teaching would fall like a pack of cards if there was no life after death. Everything that he said to us in the Bible and the Gospels would be utterly meaningless and pointless and useless and actually dangerous if there is no life after death. Why would we love our enemies if there is no life after death? So all this coming together, all these witnesses coming together from the past, all believing in life after death, provide us with a very compelling argument that there probably is life after death. We can't just ignore the witness of all these people and just say, as the materialist does, death ends everything, and that's it. We're just made of matter. So those are the arguments from authority, the authority of those who have gone before us, who have lived their lives before us, and the wise, and ultimately the most wise one of all, Jesus himself. So they make a very compelling and probable case for the existence of life after death. Today, I want to go on to even more convincing arguments, which we form by using our capacity that we have for reasoning, using our minds, using reason. And these come from me and you, using our heads as we look around at the world around us. And as I look at the world around me, I see that everything in the world is composed of what we call matter. Planets, the ocean, the mountains, the earth, the trees, everything that we can see is made of matter. Now, science tells us that matter as such cannot be created, nor can it be destroyed. It can only be changed into something else. What do I mean? Well, for example, the example I used to use a lot with 7-year-olds when I was teaching, we look at the sea. And when the sun shines on the sea, the water is changed into vapor by the heat of the sun, which then rises up into the atmosphere and forms clouds, which then moves over to the land and falls as rain on the earth. This beautiful, simple system of God that God has created, that we say God has created to bring life to the earth. So notice that the water can't be destroyed. It's changed into something else and then becomes water again. The same way with me. When my body dies, it doesn't cease to be in terms of matter. It simply changes into dust. But the matter that made me will still be there, but in another form. It's changed into another form. It's not destroyed. It's changed into another form, but it's still there. So what has this got to do with the immortality of the soul? Well, if matter is immortal, in the sense that it can't be destroyed, surely our soul, which is spiritual, is even more likely to be incapable of destruction. It would seem to be likely. So that's the argument. And if you want to memorize it, I'm going to give it to you in a concentrated form now. In a nutshell, matter is never destroyed. It's only ever transformed into something else. It is more likely that spirit is not destroyed than that matter is not destroyed. And we already know that matter is not destroyed. Therefore, it is very likely that spirit also is not destroyed. This argument is good in that it takes something that we normally think of in terms of corruption, decay, matter, and uses the fact that that matter cannot be destroyed, only transformed, and uses that reality to point out that surely spirit must have the same indestructibility too. But it does not prove my individual immortality. It points to it, but it doesn't prove it. But what it does do, it punctures the materialist. Remember, way back a few talks ago, we talked about the sort of worldviews that surround us. And the one that we hear so much is the worldview of materialism, whereby people argue that at death, nothing survives. Death ends all. But the point is, it punctures their arguments, because we can say, well, you say that you're a materialist, but don't you know that matter itself is indestructible? And if it's indestructible, surely my position that my soul is indestructible is not that inconceivable, because we're living in a situation where we can see with our eyes and test scientifically matter cannot be destroyed. It's simply transformed into something else. And we can, just to clinch our argument in the way, we say, well, as Catholics, we have masses for the dead. When we have a mass for the dead, there's a particular prayer called the preface, which precedes the Eucharistic prayer. And in one of those prefaces for the masses for the dead, it actually says, praying to the Lord, in you, O Lord, life is, and here it comes, life is changed, not ended. So that fits in with this argument rather nicely. So that's the argument from the indestructibility of matter. It points again to the likelihood that life continues after death. I'm just going to give you another one now, another argument that points in the same direction. Again, this is an argument from reason, whereby I use my head to look at the world around me and draw and see in it clues pointing to life continuing after death. So what is this one? When I look at what evolution says about the world, what does it say? It shows me that creation is in a constant state of development or evolution, from simple forms of life to more complex forms of life. We all remember studying the amoeba at school. Now, this progression from simple life to complex life seems to reflect what we see related to us in Genesis about creation. Again, there, Genesis says God creates with simpler forms to bring about complex forms later on in the cycle of creation. The first day he creates planets, and then it goes on and on and on. And then he finally creates man at the end of it. So there's this progression in Genesis from simpler forms of life to more complex forms of life, reflecting what evolution is telling us about the world. So Genesis is saying the same thing. So evolution is also telling us that this process of moving from simple to complex, the most complex thing that evolution has ended up creating is human consciousness. Our consciousness, we share, you and me, is the most complex thing in creation. Remember, our brains and our consciousness have got the capacity to study and interpret the whole of the universe. And if they can do that, they are the most complex creation in the whole of the universe. Now, this development, this careful evolution, has been going on for billions of years. Now, if death ends everything, then all that careful evolution that Mother Nature has been bringing about over billions of years seems to have been to no purpose at all. If death ends everything. Therefore, given the long progression over billions and billions of years from simple to complex forms of life, ending in human consciousness, it does not seem very likely. Intuitively, we can think it's quite likely that life does not end in death. When you consider all that careful work that has been going on over billions of years. And this becomes even more obvious to us when we've just considered the previous argument that matter itself is indestructible. Why would Mother Nature go to all that bother to bring us about at all if we were just going to die, if our human consciousness would just snuff out at the end of it all? What's the point of all that long process of evolution, purpose towards creating human consciousness, if that very human consciousness is just going to die at death? Doesn't seem likely. So these two arguments we can add to the previous ones from authority, the argument from the indestructibility of matter, and then the argument from the beautiful process of evolution supporting the same argument of purpose, creating from simple to complex human consciousness. All these things are like, again, like the threads of a rope, which we're twisting together, all coming together. We're making into this very thick rope, which really you can't break. And this rope is pointing us to the fact that human life does not end with death. So we'll go on next time to more arguments from reason, and that'll be on a week on Tuesday, because I'll be away next week. Okay, so God bless you all. Look forward to talking to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Father John.